We hot? We're good. All right. You get situated. I got to get organized here. I got my South Boston tuxedo on. I want to thank everybody, but first the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out a complete list of the sponsors there. Can't thank them enough. We'll thank a few of them now. I want to give a special shout out today to Advanced Warrior Solutions. Go check them out. They're listed down below. Please, they got some crazy bags coming out. They got some lubricant. They got a little bit of everything. Go check them out. Big shout out to them. Love those guys. And I want to thank Pulsar. Thermal imaging technology is coming down in price. Go check out Pulsar. If you haven't bought a thermal, listen, nobody will sneak up on you in the night. Go get a thermal. Enforced weapon lights, Gallo Technology, Rhino Metals for all the tables and furniture in here. Appreciate them. And CAA Gear Up USA, Blackwater Ammunition. There's a complete list of sponsors down below and on the website. Guys, without the sponsors, the show wouldn't be possible. Please throw them a bone. Go buy something. Let them know I sent you. Got a special guest today. He's fresh off the range. He's the best. I don't care what anybody says. He's the best dressed SEAL in the game. Hands down. He's killing the game.
Oh, thank you.
We got the one and only Jeff Gonzales. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Thank you for having me on.
Listen, I've been dying to get you in. Everybody that I did those episodes with during COVID, when we did them over the phone and we were scrambling and everybody was trying to do press and push shit out, I've been trying to get in. So I appreciate you coming in. And when you reached out, it was like, perfect. I'm like, done. Every answer was like, yes. Like, what do you want to do? So I love having you, and I appreciate you taking the time to come in. It means a lot. I know you run a hectic day and night schedule, so thank you.
My pleasure. This worked out perfectly, and it really was easy to get out here. I'm grateful. I was a little stressed at first, thinking, oh, man, the littlest of logistics goes sideways and I'm screwed, but it all worked out.
Yeah, no, of course. And I know it's a tight fit, but sometimes, squeezing into that old dress, it's all worth it. So I can't thank you enough. Listen, this is awesome, and it works out kind of perfectly because everything's starting to open up. Things are starting to get back to normal. For you, the struggle now, like most instructors, is getting back on the range and getting ammo in hand and getting, your regular customers back out there and getting guys training again, right?
I mean, I was super lucky because the entire time during the pandemic, I was still traveling and training, but you could see the effects. Like the classes were smaller. People were asking about the round count, how to manage ammo. It was certainly a challenge, but it is changing. Things are definitely changing for the better right now. We're seeing a lot more interest, and people are, ammo prices, I think, are starting to level out. If anything, maybe they're not at least getting higher.
Well, they can't. The ammo companies have
say that.
See, my issue with the ammo companies, and everybody knows this, is the ammo companies have motherfucked everybody. And I know you can't say it, Jeff, because you want ammo sponsors and all that happy horse shit, but I will honestly say Winchester, Federal, they're not doing anybody any favors because they clogged up the works with ammo production, and they kind of fucked themselves, and they're really screwing the instructors. And at the end of the day, the ammo is the popcorn in the movie theater. So I have a huge issue with what they've done by not getting, the components down to the smaller manufacturers that might be able to kick out more production.
For sure.
And they'll never admit that. They'll never own it. They'll never be the type of people that, will come clean. And that's an issue with me.
Well, the way I look at it as well is like it's like moving the Titanic in the ocean. They're
the
just
whole
not,
gun business.
They're not agile. That was another big thing that we learned from the pandemic was if you didn't have the ability to adapt and adjust on the fly, you weren't going to make it. And luckily, as an essential component to the business, ammunition, they kind of got a pass on that. But everybody
Spoken
else,
like a true SEAL. Adapt and overcome, right?
I mean, it's true. It forced us to really rethink how we do business.
Everyone.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, we looked at different venues, different ways of delivering the material. And, in the end, it's like, you can relate to this. If you're going to learn how to punch somebody, there's only one way to really learn how to do that, and that's to actually punch somebody.
You got to get in a fight.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, there's only so much you can do without, actually getting in the ring and doing
game speed.
Yeah, it's tough. So when we started to adapt our curriculum, I kind of pulled back a little bit, and I created some strategies for the students. I refused to lower I don't want to say our standards, but I refused round count. I gave the power to the students to determine what they wanted to do.
Right.
If you wanted to come in with 50%, great, but realize that you're going to come in and it's going to be hard to try to meet a standard at only 50% of the ammo required for the class. And I let them kind of fend for themselves, and it worked. I mean, some people didn't attend training because they just couldn't pull the trigger on, no pun intended, on the ammo, and others were inclined to concert, kind of like, I'll sit out this drill. I won't fire as many repetitions here.
Right.
They took ownership for their training, and it worked. So,
right.
That's how I've managed to cope with the crazy.
What do you hope the industry learns from this?
Not to take things for granted. Like we got caught flat-footed. I mean, everybody got caught flat-footed. And who's to say that you can ever really plan for something like this type of a pandemic? But at the very least, taking a step back and reevaluating what can we do to prevent this from happening. I mean, I think, what is it? NSSF is saying now there's close to 10 million new gun owners. I also think that at a certain point, you just have to, it goes back to just being agile. You've got to be able to recognize the new terrain and figure out a way to navigate through it and still deliver your products and services at the end.
Yeah, it's a very tricky business right now in many ways. You have an industry that's usually affected by the theater of war that we're in predominantly. We haven't really been in that theater for some time now, and in a good way, it kind of is siphoning off some of the bullshit, the people that come around the business trying to make a buck, the quick buck artists that come around. So that's a good thing for the mainstay guys. We like that, and it's not a knock at. And believe me, there's hunters, there's preppers, there's all kinds of people that come around when it's convenient. Like, I want to, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna buy a silo, that jump in, and then they kind of, and it's the same with instructors. There's the fly by night guys, all right, and other guys in the game. When you bleed that off, it's going to be interesting as the show back up, Jeff, kind of how this industry comes out of this. I think the NSSF, I'm not even going to go to the NRA, but the NSSF needs to kind of really take a look at this and look at those numbers you're talking about, and really connect. And if they don't, they're in a lot of trouble, because here's my thing. I think this industry is so fucked up, and I actually am very, people know this about me. We're going to lose the gun battle. We're going to lose, and we're going to lose badly. It's because the messaging's all wrong. The way we approach it's all wrong. You have an issue with gun rights, and Fox News instantly wants to put a Navy SEAL on TV. You know what I mean? And nobody's talking about the FFLs, which is what the NSSF is concerned with. That's the mom and pop business that's ultimately affected by this. Yeah. And it's not to say, when I say Navy SEAL guys to everybody listen, I'm talking about tip of the spear guys. Yeah. And then the messaging needs to get all lined up. It's not to say that isn't the best person, but we need to be talking about what really affects the industry and who's getting choked, the choke point.
Well, first of all, I completely agree with you about the industry, because the industry, for all of its righteousness and good, it's kind of like, the best way I can put it is it's all about me kind of thing. It's like, what can I do? What benefits me? What benefits me the most? And the problem with that is that everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's trying to, like you said, make a buck, try to strike while the iron's hot, and I get all that. I'm not dissing on that, but the problem is that we, as an industry, if you wanted to broaden, if you want to kind of zoom out and look at the industry, and that could be the entire Second Amendment / guns / all sporting kind of activities, are so individualized that we don't focus on what is in the best interest of us, of our community. What can we do together to try to drive? Because the biggest thing that is happening right now, and what people don't realize, is the division. Like, all of the division is what is kind of like chipping away at our foundation that makes it easy for a lot of the gun restrictions and the gun laws to actually make it through. It really does, because there's so much division. There's not a unified front that can move forward representing the entire industry and say, okay, I need you guys over here to be on this same sheet of music, you guys over here, and put aside the pettiness. Like, that's the other problem. There's a lot of pettiness. It's a competitive market. It's a capitalistic market. I totally get that. But like you were saying, if we don't do something to change the direction, we're screwed. I mean, really are, because I mean, it doesn't take much. Now that this pandemic is kind of on its downhill leg, I take a step back and look, okay, all right, that could have been a trial run at the extermination of our constitutional rights. So now, if they're good at what, like any opponent, they should be taking a step back and evaluating what happened and figuring out how they can do it better the next time, whatever the next time is.
I agree. I mean, the reason, and let me clarify, the reason I say we're going to ultimately lose the battle is we fight the war on the front that the left creates. And we do it all the time.
True.
And we do it all the time. And the problem is, you get people out there, and I'm not knocking it, whether it's Charlie, Kirk, or certain people, they get out there and somebody says, we assault rifle ban, and he's over there screaming, it's an Armalite rifle. We're fighting the war on the wrong front.
So I completely agree with you. I even go to the extent of, we need to regain our language. We need to all be
awesome.
On the same
I
sheet
love
of
that
music.
statement.
Yeah, we need to retake our language. And here's the thing. We need to set the terms for how we want to engage, which is not what anybody's doing.
And to everybody listen, I'm not clapping to be a wise prick. Jeff is a very smart guy, and I have him on this show because he gets it. And similar to other SEALs I've had on, like Ryan McMillan, guy that you get it, and you understand we have to get our talking points in line. It has to all be on the same page. You can't just keep doing it the lazy way where it's like, let's just throw Dana Lausch out there, and like she'll say something.
We're so reactive, and so speaking of looking at this from a strategic point of view, I never want to fight the bad guy on bad guy's home turf or
101.
Terrain. Right, exactly. I want to reset the engagement and kind of put them in a position where their assets are working against them, whatever the case might be. And in this case, one of the things that I suggest is stop engaging in dialogue with the left when it revolves around gun violence. Just stop. There's no reason to do that. If we want to have a conversation with the masses, make it about what's really the issue. What's the issue? Because that's the thing that I think everybody kind of gets lost in. They immediately hear gun control, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do this, and they become extremely defensive. Rightfully so, because in the past we've seen history, we've seen how that happens. So, okay. But here's the thing. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and instead of engaging with gun rights or gun violations or whatever you want to term it, what's the root issue? What are you concerned about? If you're my opponent, what really gets on your nerves? What is really bothering you? Is it really the guns, or is it something else? Is this a perceived fear? Like, are you afraid that what is the real issue here? Why are you pushing this agenda? Help me to understand what is really going on in your head. And what I've come to find out is most people are worried about needless loss of life. All right. Fair. Let's take a step back. Let's look at needless loss of life. If we can all agree that that is the one thread that unites us all.
The common denominator.
Exactly. So then let's focus on that. But if we did focus on it, let's also be genuine and truthful about it, because if we're looking at needless loss of life, it ain't anywhere near guns. It's, in the United States, within the top 10, I think from CDC, guns don't even make the top 10. It's health issues, it's workplace accidents, it's
drugs,
it's vehicles, it's all sorts of things that are the mainstay in what's wrong with our country as a whole. We're obese, we are easily distracted from our whatever we're doing. These things, whether it's the cell phone or whatever's happening on social media, we're easily distracted, and that causes all sorts of problems. So my recommendation for folks is, don't be afraid to engage, but do it on your terms. Like, you want to have a conversation, let's do this. Let's go ahead and go down that road. But I'm not gonna bore you with statistics. I'm not gonna bore you with those types of things. Let's really talk about what's at the root cause. What is really bothering you? And most of the time, when that has happened with somebody that was, very, very close to foaming at the mouth about getting gun control passed. Now all of a sudden, there's a different perspective, and now we can have a conversation about it, and now we can, because I feel like if we're always in a reactionary mode, we're never in a place where we can move our agenda forward. We're always defending. We're never on the offense trying to move our agenda forward and safeguard those rights through legislation, safeguard our rights through, community education and involvement. It just, we're not doing any of that.
And I think on a great, on a different scale, on a on a lateral scale, having the conversation with people about, how they would like to implement whatever change that they want to make. Just be open. Hey, what do you want to do? We want to just take all the guns away. Okay, well, how do you do that? Okay, so let's draw the equivalent line. If you've had a right for 1,000 years, or whatever, 300 years, 400 years, how do you just want to get rid of that? Tell me your way. Walk me through what that looks like, and get into the conversation. And there's a competing narrative. The one, like you said, having your assets working again. The competing narrative is you want to get rid of all the guns, yet you want to defund the police and deball the military. You see where I'm going? It's a
totally
competing
true.
narrative.
So this is why it's so important that we get into that, because that's the secret. It's a competing. It's because what's on the surface, what they try to perpetuate on the surface is not really what they want.
Right.
When you get through all these, and I would go one step further. When you want to sit there and you want to come at me with, okay, we want to take all the guns away, my first question to you is why? Why do you want to do that? Help me to understand your why. Because before we can get to the how, we have to understand the why.
Think with the end in mind.
Yeah. So when we start talking about that, I realized, and this kind of was, this didn't happen overnight, by the way.
You thought this out.
Well, yeah, but it took many years of having these conversations, many years of banging my head against the wall, many years of, of an effort to try to, okay, whatever we're doing, like you were saying, what we're doing isn't working. So why am I continuing to spin my wheels? And as I started to better understand the why, there are some genuine concerns, but then I would say the vast majority, it has nothing to do with guns as it does control. And that's the key, is it's more, and if we can direct the light onto that subject, it's all about control. All right, well, let's have a conversation about that. Why do you want it to be about control? What is it that you are afraid of? What is it that bothers you? What is it? Is it because you don't like the fact that maybe you are not as successful as some of these other people? Or you're afraid of some of these other people, independence and self-reliance? Or what is the issue here? Let's talk about that, because that to me is what I feel is really driving a lot of this.
Well, of course, the control is the root of I would say, the political argument. It's how can we control this block. Now, what's interesting and very compelling, because the devil's always in the data, is they don't know who these new gun owners are. Meaning the electorate, the elected officials. Sorry, they don't know in the electorate what's cooked into those numbers.
Yeah.
Is it fringe Democrats? Is it purple people eaters? Where are those numbers? And they're dying to know. And that's why the gun, guys, to everybody listening, that's why the gun issue, and the people in the chat, has been one of those things that they've touched it, but it's like a stove. They're kind of like, we don't know, because Biden's already lost Pennsylvania. He's already well beyond getting Florida back, and Texas is on the fritz, and California ain't looking too hot right now in many ways.
Yeah,
but his people are very aware of that. They're like, wait a minute, this is a big block of voters.
Yeah.
And we have to be very careful. And I liken what's going on. This was what could save the gun industry. I liken what's going on in the gun industry. You're seeing a lot of little d Democrats go out and buy guns, just like there's a lot of little r Republicans that are pro-choice. They're out there. They're kind of, they're so like, true. Hey, I'm okay with this under this circumstance. And if a girl's raped 5 times in an alley, I might understand that. So, there's people out there that data is important to them, and those are the people right next to the big guys.
So here's another way to look at that. I had an opportunity for about a year to be on the front lines of many of those new gun owners, and I will tell you right now that most of them were agnostic about guns. Mm-hmm. Didn't come into their lives, and it was just kind of like, it was a bunch of white noise on the news or in their social spheres and whatnot. They didn't really care about it. But, you have a pandemic, things get a little crazy. You add some rioting, things get a little crazier. you add defunding the police, and now what has happened is you force. Here's what is so funny about this is that the left's agenda forced the conversation on so many of these people that were agnostic about guns, and those people are a large makeup of these 10 million new gun owners.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild, and they don't know the numbers, and it's freaking them out. They don't know the true data.
Well, I can only kind of speculate, but I will tell you that from what I saw, and I live in Austin, which is a fairly liberal city, and so what I saw on a day-to-day basis was a lot of folks that might, like you were saying, they might have been. Yeah. And here's the other thing too. I think a lot of times what happened was there's when somebody is promoting an agenda to you and it doesn't impact you, you're more inclined to kind of jump on board and be supportive of it.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Feed the people. Right. But then all of a sudden, when it's something like gun control and you add elevated risks to it, like in the public sector, like people were at risk of having their food stores stolen, they're going about their business, run into a riot,
door kicked open, raped and kidnapped.
I mean, crazy stuff. And now all of a sudden it changes the dynamics of that conversation. It changes the dynamics of those that didn't have an opinion beforehand. Now they have, I wouldn't say a strong opinion, but they're shaping an opinion. Exactly. They're shaping an opinion, and they're like, you know what?
It's not a hard no.
It's not a hard no. And that right there is what is scaring the crap out of the left. It is, because that 10 million is a big number, and it ain't. I don't know when this trend's going to end.
It's essentially 10% of the vote. Yeah.
When you think about
it's essentially 10% of the vote.
And even if but here's what's scary. A lot of those votes are in contested states, where it makes a difference.
Yeah. In so many ways, I hope they're able to get dialed in. And I think some talking points need to be addressed. I think there needs to be some type of gathering of the herd of voices around the community. One of the reasons, as many know, as you know, I started this show, and the format and scale to which I started it was to get people around the culture that are supportive of the culture, but on the outside sometimes, and put them in a room with like-minded individuals having conversations over the course of an hour, because I hated Instagram and I hated what it was doing to the industry because it was lacking context, Jeff. So true. It's a picture. What kind of context do you draw from that? Where's the backstory? So, it's true in the sense that our what is hurting us the most is lack of unified leadership in 100% in our community. And I don't know where that leadership comes from, whether it comes from the NSSF, whether it comes from the NRA, whether it comes from a union of kindred spirits that come together. I don't know what the answer is. It's a hard one, and it's a hard one, Jeff, because you have so many leaders in this industry, right? Great people, executives, but they've hid in the bushes for so long. They reach in their pants and they pull up pudding. And there's no, I'm serious, there's no true leader. Like, you talk about an industry filled with supposedly the biggest alphas, biggest dicks, door kickers, and you look at the executive level and nobody has a set of stones in their pants. Think about this. I started literally shitting on people on LinkedIn. Bullying them, practically bullying them, as many people know. And I'm not proud to say that word, but saying, like, we need someone to step up here. Well, it's true, because, what really boggles my mind is, like, I've been in this industry for a long time. March of this year, we celebrated our 20 years, 20-year anniversary. I can't even, I'm just like, sometimes when I say that, it's like, what? But I've always noticed it. And maybe the first 10 years, it didn't really matter. It was all like, just go get it, champion, conquer your little piece of the pie and go forth. And now that same mentality that I saw at the first part of the career is actually hurting us big time. 100%. I ask people this all the time. I can't believe I cannot believe in this industry. Like when I was a CEO and I was coming of age in this business at a young age, and I was fortunate to be kind of bopping around in the circles I was in. I'm going on 12 or 13 years deep now, myself. Multiple shows. When I was like an outspoken like people were like, you got to keep your head down and just and like hide. There's that mentality. Like people just want to hide.
Well, it's true because. So my theory on that is
fear.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
fear.
It is like especially today in this like the last 12 to 16 months where we've seen the cancel culture, where we've seen social media boycotts and censorship. I mean, unfortunately, we as an industry got in bed with the left when it came to promoting our business.
100%.
And now it's like, okay, I've got to cooperate to graduate. I can't necessarily rock the boat. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. There's been some challenges on my end as far as like speaking my mind and realizing that, okay, well, right now this is the sole vehicle that we use to get the word out. I'd love to be able to go back and just go back to what we normally would do, which was word of mouth, emails, more point-to-point kind of stuff. But in this day and age, it's not how people find us.
And it blows my mind that it's taken people like John Lovell at Warrior Poet Network, people, like me to develop this platform to actually create a dialogue, to start to create a narrative, to stem into things like streaming. Before this, everything was like, hey, I'm going to do a review online. Like nobody was opening up the dialogue. Nobody was opening up the conversation. It's crazy.
Well, and here's the thing. If I believe that if we start having the conversation and if we start, and it's like, here's the thing. The thing that works against us is the thing that makes us the strongest, which is the kind of like the mindset, the discipline, like the alpha that you referenced. That's kind of like, that's a strength, but it's also a weakness for us because we don't always play well together, and I feel like that's one of the things that we all have to do. We all have to kind of take a step back, and what's like one of the hardest things that I had to kind of like overcome when I left the Navy was the difference in attitude when I got into the private sector, and how it's not about the team, it's about the individual. And it was such a freaking, like, it took me years and so many like sessions of just pulling my hair out because I don't understand. It's why can't we all be unified in same mission, same team kind of thought process. So that's, I think, what we need to start having that conversation about is let's get on. If we're serious, stop goofing around. Stop making it about you as an individual. It's not about the ego. It should be about the mission. Like, focus in on the mission. What is our mission?
There's a lot of people, Jeff, out there that want to hawk and I'm not knocking any one of these things individually, but whether it's getting time on the networks, they want to push them, selling a mug or a T-shirt or a book.
Yeah.
And to a great extent, we both get it. If it makes money, it makes sense, and it has to make sense.
For sure.
It has to make sense. But at the same time, there comes a point where then you have to take a responsibility because you're shaping the narrative. It's kind of like if I'm on your range and I'm running around and I'm telling guys what to do and it's 100% wrong, you have a responsibility to correct me.
I even go one step further than that. You're absolutely right about that. But the other thing that I'm like, my responsibility is to future generations.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's like like Reagan said it best, freedom is one generation away from being extinct. Liberties are one generation away from leaving us. And the thing about you can voluntarily give up your freedoms, but you will have to kill to get them back. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. And that's why I'm like, hey, listen, we're really in a bad way right now. And we have to start to unify and get some sort of mission statement that we can all get behind and all get those talking points all on the same sheet of music and start actually, like codifying how we're going to present a front towards any of these assaults on our rights.
Yeah, I hope we figure it out. Whether or not we will, and we can go down a rabbit hole with this all day, but I hope we do. again, a part of me will always say, until we figure that out, we're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with, like you said, setting aside the ego. You said it in the beginning, setting aside the sum of the individual in the equation and focusing on what can take us over. And what can take us over is taking control of our language, like you said, not to steal it from you, taking control of the narrative, building the proper pipeline to an end result that is what we feel going to be complementary of the goals we're trying to reach.
I agree.
And the only way to get there is to get everybody, see, in our industry, since Ackerman McQueen stepped out and NRA kind of has been floating in space, and that's what I'll say about that, floating in space. Everybody's been jockeying for like the microphone, so to speak.
True.
There's like this jockeying going on around the industry.
Yeah.
And I've said to people 100 times, look, I just want to put people in a room and have them talk. And I think in that dialogue, we'll come out with what the best conversation is and what the best narrative is. And I think there's guys like you out there. There's guys, and it's funny because I look at the tip of the spear guys in many ways as the guys who could be the best voice for it if they get it dialed in and understand who's affected by this, what an FFL looks like, what a mom and pop looks like that's being taken advantage of. But I don't see, we talk about the NSSF and who they really support. We don't see a lot of guys have the understanding of who that speaks to. Like when I had Ryan McMillan in here, in that room, he and I talked about it. We still talk about it. I said, Ryan, this industry craves leaders. Right now, there is a craving of leadership. Yeah. And the shame of it is, you have institutions like the NSSF and the NRA that they can take and they can amplify a guy like Jeff Gonzales, a guy like Ryan McMillan, a guy like John Bartolo, a guy like whoever, like Clint Smith, whoever, that can get up there and that can start the conversation. They might not be the answer. You might not be the answer. I might not be the answer. Mm-hmm. But it has to start somewhere, guys.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's true. And, like the other thing that I hope people will pay attention to nowadays is like what's at stake. Really let's really kind of talk about what is really at stake here, cuz I think sometimes people feel a little overwhelmed by the conversations and then there's this disbelief. Oh, that can't happen.
No way
that can't happen. And then of course within the first 100 days we hear no right is absolute. No constitutional right is absolute. And so you got to start to question, like, okay, let's just, for argument's sakes, let's just spitball what's the worst that can happen. And just have that conversation, because I promise you that what you can create in your head as far as the worst case scenario, we're not far from.
Nothing's off the table. No. That's what I say. No, I mean, if I could leave everybody with one quote from me in this, nothing's off the table. No one's safe.
It's crazy. And I want people. Here's the thing. Somebody, like, they're looking to their right, they're looking to their left. Oh, somebody else will do this. It's not my responsibility. Mm-hmm. But that's the problem. That's what we've been doing for all this time, is nobody wants to take that responsibility on.
A great example of this, in understanding that your dollar, your vote matters, doing your homework, is look at California. Mm-hmm. Okay, a lot of people that you're talking about, these purple people eaters, I call them, these little D Democrats, they were going into gun shops and buying guns, and you know this. They were like, "What do you mean I have a wait?"
Oh God!
Because they hadn't done their homework, so they didn't know when these legislative votes were coming up what was really going on. And I talked to the FFLs. I'm one of the few guys that reaches out to these guys and says, "What's going on out there?" I'm calling Lax. I'm calling these different companies out, and I'm saying, "What's happening?" And they're saying, "John, you're not going to believe this." I had the Warrior Tactical guys on. They said, these people don't know that they have to wait X amount of days. They think like they're going home with the gun that day. And they're like, what do you mean? The laws are so, like, to everybody listening that understands, if you're kind of a Democrat, whatever you are, you don't understand it. You can't, almost in no store can you walk out and just buy a gun. That's not real.
So it was so funny because I can completely relate to that firsthand. There in Austin, when we saw the first wave, there were 3 distinct waves of gun purchases. And the first wave was when the pandemic kicked off.
The panic.
Yeah. And I can recall the tenseness in the atmosphere was so tense because people were being told because the Nixis check was so overwhelmed, they shut down. You couldn't, like, even if you wanted to get that, background check, you couldn't.
You couldn't get through.
Overwhelmed. I mean, the sheer volume of people calling in to try to do that was just overwhelming, and it shut that system down. So people were waiting 7 to 10 days, and they couldn't believe that, because that was part of the, those were part of the gun control legislative passages that they just kind of like did they just did a pen swipe of their voting card, because they voted in line. They didn't bother to stop and look at this and say, well, I wonder if this is a good idea, this 7-day wait. I wonder if that's a good idea. Or I wonder if, restrictions on how many magazines I can purchase, or what's the magazine capacity that I can purchase. I bet you, as you're trying to defend your home from marauders, you're thinking that I want as many as I can have.
Right.
So I feel like the biggest mistake that we see on both sides is people that just vote party lines.
Yeah, well, we saw in this election that it's possible to win everything down ballot, but not win up ballot. So,
yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a frustrating thing.
First time ever, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's frustrating because, I'm guilty of it myself. Like I typically vote. I vote with the agendas that matter to me at a personal level. Like I take interest in those topics, and I look and see who, what's your record?
See, one of my issues with the candidates, and this is a good topic, actually. I haven't got into this with anyone yet, and I want to. You're the perfect person.
Okay, great.
This is fresh material, everybody. Wee. So my issue with the crop of candidates we're getting now to vote on is when they run, a lot of them, we really don't know what they stand for. And a lot of them, I feel, are running just to pipe up their social media or amplify their audience.
Get a blue check
mark. And they're not. I'm like, well, what the fuck do you stand for? And you get people that get up there and they don't say anything. And that's a common trend in politics. They don't say anything. I'm not going to name names because there's a couple even on the right that I'm like, do you hear yourself? Mm-hmm. And I wish that this was talked about originally in the Trump administration. It didn't come to fruition. It was around the time he was doing his business. Remember, he had all his business leaders. He was doing a thing where it was all his business leaders. There was talk, and I think you might remember this, where they were going to be doing a group of gun influencers. They were going to get them together, and they were going to have these conversations. Yes, and I know it was talked about because I know people. Wink, wink. But it was happening, and this was loosely discussed. And what I wish came out of that was some elected officials on the left and the right could understand the language that's used and understand the talking points, understand what's important to us in the community that we're in.
Yeah.
Kind of like anything else. Like the things sometimes they bring up, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? Is that the hill we want to die on? I didn't get that memo.
Not at all.
So there's a lot of that.
So my problem with a lot of the current crop of politicians is that you said it, that there's not any real history of their voting.
Who are you?
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing that, my oldest son was eligible to vote in this election just due to the way his age kind of came around. And so I told him straight up, I'm like, here's what you need to do. If you are, because he even said, my vote doesn't matter. I'm like, yes, it absolutely does matter. It absolutely does matter. And what matters even more is that you are an educated vote, right? That's what makes the difference, is that you're going to actually educate yourself on the issues that matter to you, and you're going to find the candidates that feel like you can, that can support you. So I try to talk him through, here's how you do this. Let's pick a candidate. When we picked a candidate and we started to just kind of look online, couldn't find anything about any of the thing. I'm like, okay, so here I am. I've got egg all over my face because I'm sitting here trying to explain to my son, well, you got to do some research. You got to find what are their past performance, because the best predictor of future behavior is past performance.
Right.
Couldn't find any. And I'm like, well, normally this should work, buddy. Trust me. But I couldn't help him in that sense.
Yeah, it's very hard, and I think that's a little bit of the struggle. Like you said, I question sometimes the motive of some of these, what I call perpetual candidates. They're kind of always running. There's a few of them out there I kind of have my eye on, and I'm like, why don't you talk? the narrative they're running with is, how can I put down either the person I've already lost to or the person I potentially am running against, without talking about the things that move the country forward?
It is so true. I can't believe it. It's like I feel like sometimes the political arena is like not even middle school, almost like elementary school all over again on the playground. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like calling names, pulling pigtails, you know, ratting on somebody. You know, it's like, wait a minute, what the hell?
Like, tell me how you would have voted in that situation and why. Tell me what you would have done in that situation and why.
Yeah.
And stop talking about, you know, I don't want to name names in it because some of them are on the Republican. I pay more attention to the Republicans. Some are on the Republican side, but I'm pleading. So if you're on the right side, please, guys, if you're running and have lost or are potentially running, please take a moment. Stop telling me what the other guy did wrong and start telling me what you would do.
You know, I will tell you that one of my pet peeves is when somebody just points the finger and starts the blame game. I cannot stand that at all. And one of my favorite maxims is, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. Because if all you're going to do is come and bitch and whine and complain, I got no time for you.
Because it's easy to fall in that trap, Jeff, of everybody was getting high on the fumes of downing Trump, right? Trump was the Antichrist.
So true.
And it's easy to get high on the fumes of following that, dovetailing on that, and being someone that just downs the competitor and staying in that vein. He could pull off what he did.
Yeah, for sure.
He could pull off what he did. It was in his DNA. He was like a New York City taxi cab driver. It was in his DNA to be that guy.
Yeah.
And he called people out on their BS.
Yeah.
Did he go too far with it sometimes? Did he carry on with it sometimes? We can all make that argument one way or the other.
For sure.
Six of one, half dozen of another. The reality is not everybody can pull that off. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there and you're running or have run and you continue down that path of, I'm just going to shit on the person in front of me or the person that's next to me now, if you've won, it's not a solution. You're not presenting a moving forward case.
The funny thing about that is it's so predictable. It's like you're almost watching a horror movie. Like, you kind of know.
Oh, I love horror.
I know. That's why I brought it up. It's kind of like, you know, like, don't open that. Don't open that. Don't do it. Don't go outside. Don't go outside.
Part of the charm.
I know. You know it's coming, yet they still do it. It's like a playbook. They literally, all right, here comes the smear campaign. Okay, they're 5 points up, so now you're going to see this. They're 5 points down, now you're going to see that, you know. And it's like, it's frustrating because I feel like for the generation that is coming up in the voting age groups, like my son, you know, they don't know what they're looking at. They're like, is this how it's done? I'm like, no, it's not how it should be done. It should be done like adults, where don't worry, you know, you let the other candidate campaign on their own merits. Campaign on your merits. What are your merits? What are you bringing to the table? What are you going to do? How are you going to change my life? How are you going to change my life for the better? Because I don't care about this other person. You're the bulwark to stop that other person, because you're promoting this agenda is what's going to make me feel good about myself and my life, and that what that other guy is promoting is not. You stay to your guns.
There's so many competing narratives out there that now, as a candidate, even at a national level, you only have a certain amount to get your messaging dialed in and to understand what you stand for. And you have to pound that home.
Yeah.
So it's really important when you sit with, even if you're running at a local level, Senate, seat, you know, even governor, you got to get that message. And if you're going to go national with it, people have to understand, what do you stand for? Like, DeSantis is doing a great job in Florida, letting everybody know what he stands for.
He's damn straight.
Yeah, law and order, and I'm going to open things up, and I trust the people to make the right choice.
So, like, one of the things that I find to be refreshing is the fact that he's treating his Floridians like adults. And there's children amongst the adults. Get it? I understand that. But I think the right thing to do is, like, we all know this. The less government intervention, the better off we're going to be.
Always.
That's like the ace up the sleeve. The less government, the better off. And he's showing that. And I hope other states take, like, and here's the thing. Here's the problem. Like, so many other states were afraid to go against, the fear-mongering machine that was creating death and destruction if you don't do this.
Well, I get a kick out of the fact, Jeff, that BLM's turning on the left. And that's hilarious. And I get a kick out of, remember, where was it? Was it Minneapolis? Where was that mayor that, like, the BLM turned on him? And
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
Portland or Seattle. One of those two. Yeah.
There was a mayor. And so I have a theory. Like, I've said this about Jack Dorsey, and I've said this about Zuckerberg. These guys aren't Republican or Democrats. They just want anarchy. And it's the same thing with BLM. They just want chaos. Their vote is for chaos. So if you think
true.
like that mayor, it's hilarious, right? Because if you think that mayor was going to hitch his wagon to, like, I'm going to ride that BLM train all the way to the presidency, they were like, fuck you. They turned the script on him.
What I love is they
shoved it up his ass.
They played him like a fiddle. They played all these people like fiddles because that's the playbook. It's like, let me say a few good words about these people because that means money in my pocket. That means that I can go for a second term. That means that I can up my merit to maybe a congressperson kind of seat. I mean, it's like, that's the game. That's how they play it. And so, what's funny is
they went to his house.
And I saw, like, where was it? Also, it was one of the other cities that had a huge problem that now they're investing a ridiculous amount of money into police recruiting because now they realize how stupid they were. It's like, I find this comical and sad at the same time. Comical and sad.
I love that, though. I mean, look, I don't want to dwell on it, but I love that they turned on him and they went to his house. Like, imagine being that guy and you're like, no, wait, I'm with you.
And it's like, I find, like, that's the thing that really makes me laugh so hard. I shouldn't say laugh, but
you feel for the guy because they, like, wanted to lynch him. They were looking for him.
Like, the other thing that I'm laughing about is, like, what, like, I mean, come on. You didn't see that coming? You didn't think that was going to come back and bite you in the ass at some point? Oh, my
God.
Like, it's just, and the thing of that I think drives a lot of these up-and-coming politicians, number one, it's part of a larger movement, in my opinion, right? So a lot of these up-and-coming politicians that are promoting a leftist agenda are being supported by a lot of deep pockets, whereas anybody with a conservative or Republican kind of background are, they're facing an uphill battle. So even though maybe the better candidate through more statesmanship is on the Republican conservative side, they're outgunned because the left or liberal or Democrat has just deeper pockets to kind of push, and that's like you see that at the local levels. You see a lot of the local level elections that, like,
they're very organized,
very much so, and that's a problem. That should be like a wake up call. Hey, man, right now my biggest concern is what's happening at local level.
Yeah, the left is very, very organized. It's scary in so many ways how organized and how together they are, and we're chasing it.
Well, it's true, because when I also look at some of these politicians, I'm like, that doesn't, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this, and it's probably gonna ruffle some feathers, but I don't really see that person as a leader.
No.
And whether it's, and I don't care what your gender is. I don't care whatever your beliefs are. I just don't see, like, I see in the language, I see in the persona, and I see it in there. And here's the thing that I love is, if you want to see how corruptible a person is, give them power. And you find, like, every one of those, that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted the power. They wanted the power right away so that they could immediately go and do whatever they wanted. And then you see their true colors after that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's universally known that the left is very organized, especially at the local level. At the national level, I think the right has better steam if I was to use a word. They have good steam. They don't have the power of the news movement, but what they have, that MAGA movement, there's steam there. Like they'll mobilize.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But we underestimate at the smaller levels how important it really is at the city level, at the state level, at the county level to get in there and get moving and get the messaging out there and get people voting. It's very hard. So, for the most part, I hope, and I don't want to stem too deep into politics. I want to get to a couple things with you.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
but I think politically, we're ripe for someone to come in. And if Trump ends up not running, okay, in 2024, if he ends up saying, I'm not going to run, I'm going to be this bastion of, and I'm going to help, I'm going to help raise funds, and it ends up being a DeSantis type situation, or he decides to run and maybe DeSantis wants to step in too as the number 2 this time around, and they want to build something there. There's something there, because I could even see that working out, and I could see Pence being like a Secretary of State type of guy, something like he'd be totally in for that.
So
and I could see sweeping change coming.
Man, I'll tell you,
that's the hope.
I try not to there's a difference
to game it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love the idea. I love that imagery in my head of what you just described. It is it's reassuring to some extent, because I hate to say it, but I mean, there's some clowns running the show right now. Just some
but I think
clowns.
if you do it this time around, if it succeeds, if you come in heavy with those type of ammunition, you got to go all the way. You got to bring like Don Jr. in as Secretary of Interior. You got to go all the way.
Yeah.
You got to go heavy, and we're going all in.
Well, I think you're right about that. It means it also means that, and it's not like they weren't serious, but I feel like
They tiptoed a little.
yeah.
They took an inch when they should have taken a mile.
Yeah, it's like, man, listen, I feel like there was that political correctness that still lingers, that people are afraid to kind of speak their mind and say something that they should say. And I think that's what people want to hear nowadays. They don't want to hear, like, everybody's so used to the same freaking, the role repeat of whatever the past person said. They're going to say it again. People want to hear. They want to hear something fresh. They want to hear something different. They're going to be more interested in listening to you if you do kind of say something that's in that frame.
Well, I think what we're already seeing, and this stems into the next kind of area, we're already seeing cancel culture and going woke means going broke kind of die, right? And we're seeing it.
So
We're seeing it now, whether it's the Gina Carano situation, or what's going on at Disney as a kind of a melting pot of what's going on in Hollywood the last 2 years. I mean, Hollywood, it's kind of funny. It's so comical. Literally, the Oscars are down to nobody watching. Nobody watches that shit.
I couldn't even believe. I didn't even watch, like, not only did I not watch the Oscars, I didn't even watch like the roast for the
Nobody
Oscars.
even cares who won. It's
I don't even.
it's because it's literally turned into a bunch of pee-pee touchers getting in a room and giving each other awards, and that's what it's turned into, and nobody cares. And it's kind of like, you need to quit while you're ahead. Like, this needs to go away for a while, because nobody cares about, things like the gaming awards, Jeff, things like that are like going in a whole nother direction. Those are going way up. They're performing through the roof. Nobody cares anymore about a bunch of rich people getting together, putting on fancy clothes and saying, I'm so cool and I'm so perfect, and giving the common person advice. That veil has been lifted, and that veil's gone.
I think I laugh about this, but I think the tipping point was Ricky Gervais when he just roasted that entire evening, just that monologue that he went into.
Oh, they're all they blackball those people because they're like, what are you doing? There's no one behind the curtain. Ignore the man behind the curtain.
It was probably one of the greatest. Like, I can watch that monologue over and over and over again, because
And he was right.
He was absolutely right. And I feel like that was the tipping point where people were like, Yeah, screw it. Because I think a lot of it was also habits.
Right.
Oh, the Oscars are on. Let's make sure we have time to watch them at night.
And that's what they were counting on.
So true.
But to everybody listening, I say this over and over again. You vote with your dollar. You vote with your time. When you put your time and you put that equity into something, they're using that data to tell whether it's sponsors, whoever. That's why everybody who goes into super chats, does whatever, supports certain people. You vote with your dollar, guys, and you vote with your time.
So true.
And when you put it into something, you're telling them, I like that. They're using that data, whether you loved it or hated it, as fuel. And the Oscars and cancel culture, going woke, none of that shit is going to work, because at the end of the day, everybody loves the warrior's journey. They love the story. And I've talked about this 100 times. Whether it's Hollywood, you don't need to shove something down someone's throat. For years, everybody who knows me knows. One of my best friends, Tony Sentman, Real World Tactical, knows this. He called me, sent me a picture of the poster signed. He was like, I'm getting this for you. Everybody knows, like, I loved Sigourney Weaver and Aliens. I loved that. I loved that. And you don't need to shove it down my throat. She was my hero for years. I don't need Brie Larson riding in on the fucking candy cane trail of fucking transvestites and you know, pee-pee touchers. I don't need that shoved in my face. I'm okay with rooting for Thor and Endgame. I'm okay with rooting for, you know, let people enjoy the warrior they enjoy. I don't need it shoved down my throat.
It's so true. And I mean, I'll tell you, the thing about the cancer culture is that it's insidious. Like it bothers me because it is an attempt to bully people through removing their status of sorts. You know, like if we can turn in a narrative against it. We can expel somebody from a project because they have a difference of opinion or whatever the case might be. And my belief is that cancel culture has done one thing for us in a positive note, is that it has shined a light onto all of these, like, just these folks that are, in my opinion, they're weak.
Oh, there's so much there. You know, because you're not wrong, but you said just enough that it hits so many nerves, because you're dealing with, okay, so first of all, like the Gina Carano's incident. Anyone who listens to Twitter weirdos that get together and bought their way into saying can't, and then you see a company acquiesce and say, we're going to, that blew up so hard in Disney's face that they're trying to fix poor Favreau, who's probably a closet Republican. He's like hiding in the bushes.
I don't know, man.
You know,
he's pretty strong on the left.
Yeah,
you know?
But John,
you
at least,
know.
He's strong on. He's the voice of reason in so many ways in it.
Yeah.
You know, but John, poor John's trying to put it back together, and he's like, I'm just trying to put something together that sells here, guys. And you're over here fucking it all up any way that you can, you know, and you're taking the best franchise in the history of the world. Now, it was just May the 4th be with you. So,
I know, right?
You know, and you're taking the best franchise in the history of the world and you're destroying it by trying to crowbar something down people's throats.
It was comical to watch that happen. It had no place, no bearing whatsoever in that. And God bless her for standing up and staying strong to all of that. I mean, I think that right there.
I think they're going to rehire.
I would not be surprised, and if they did, it would be a huge, big FU back to the cancel culture. Like, yeah, we were wrong. And here's the thing. We're big enough to admit it. We're big enough to admit it because we're seeing the loss in revenue, and we can't afford that because we're a business. We have to make good, smart business decisions. That was a bad business decision. They make that decision, and that right there that's another tipping point, because now other corporations are going to be saying the same thing. Like, I mean, you know, geez, there's so many other examples of the stupidness of this cancel culture.
You're in the business of selling toys, fucking toys.
Why are you
and you're worried
out?
you're worried about her saying bippity boppity boop. Like, what are we talking about here?
I don't even remember what she said, and it wasn't even controversial. It just ruffled the feathers of the and the way that I put this is, like, these people have nothing better to do than to latch on to some imaginary issue and make it real.
Amplify it.
Yes, that's exactly what they do. And the reason why I believe they do that is because, I mean, I can say it a lot of different ways, But I believe that the reason why cancel culture exists is because there is a huge trend of people that have either very little or no self-confidence. Like they're timid, they're weak, they have cowardice tendencies. They do these types of things because it gives them, in some sense, power.
It seems like Bill Maher is going to be the guy to save it. In many ways, it's great, but it makes sense.
Just the other day was
it makes sense though, because
you're stupid.
Yeah, because it makes sense because he's looking at it and he's like, what is going on here? Somebody sneezed. Like, I love that you have like Joy Behar, right? Like she's the bastion of like what's good in the universe. Joy Behar, you are a fair at best comedian. At best, fair at best, and you got lucky by getting on a show, because otherwise you weren't making any money. Nobody was casting you in movies. You weren't doing any more stand-up. Nobody wanted to go see an old lady do stand-up. I'm sorry, nobody was doing it, and you get into this role where now you're a gatekeeper, and
That's it.
You've been given way too much power in life.
That's my point. I mean, for the record, I didn't even know she was a comedian.
It's sad.
Yeah. So, but you know, the thing that I feel,
And where are her balls for comedians? I mean, what
well,
the
that's
fuck?
the other thing. I mean, come on now. I mean, there's very few in this day and age that are still willing to actually be comical. And I mean, that's the thing that bothers me the most is like right there. I cannot tell you how many times when like on active duty, we were in just the shit. I mean, just miserable conditions, just horrible. Imagine the worst.
You break out those Andrew Dice Clay tapes.
Fuck yeah. Or I mean, you're on op. You can't necessarily do that, but you just crack a joke. You just make fun of something. You just kind of like, you add a little levity to it all, and you just see that smirk on the lip of the guys, and then you're like, all right, we're ready to get it on now. You know,
What makes me so sad, and I go back and forth with Jack Carr about this. We'll go back and forth. I'll send him stuff he gets a kick out of. Is some of these 80s movies, you'll never see them. Like, you can't recreate them. Like, you just can't.
I try to tell the kids that. I'm like, no, they cannot remake that movie. It will not work.
It will not work.
It will not work.
Like, Smokey and the Bandit, never again.
Try. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was so pissed off when they tried to do a redo of Magnum PI. I mean, I like that actor. I liked him, but dude, come on now.
It was a better attempt than most, but not successful.
It was at least a good attempt, but come on, you can't. Like, where's the creativity? Where is?
You can't risk it now.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's better to go with the tried and true, and then like, we tried, it didn't work out. Let's go with the next product.
And I do, listen, I'm all to people that I'm not anti-sequel. Like, I think there is benefits. Like I look at the Marvel universe and how they fleshed out all the characters, and I love hearing all the character stories, and so do you.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the Star Wars universe and everything else. I love that fleshing out of all the characters inside those universes. If it's done right, if you let Favreau do it, or you let somebody that knows what they're doing how to flesh that all out and create that universe, you can't create dead ends. Now, do I want to see everything rebooted? There's some movies, like, you can never redo Jaws, right? Like, it just cannot be redone. There's no fucking way on God's green earth it can be redone. It'd be too CGI'd out and it'd be all fucked up. And
that's the other thing I was trying to tell the kids. It's like, listen, there's a time when movies actually had meat to them. It wasn't all about special effects. It wasn't always, I mean, you look at Star Wars, you look at the first Star Wars, came out in 76, and the effects blew us away at the time. But when you look at them now, it's like, But the problem is we became so addicted to the CGI that now it's got to have, like, like for my kids to want to watch it, it's got to be CGI to the max. Otherwise, they're bored.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Godzilla and King Kong because it was, to me, it was too CGI'd out. There are some movies I'd be intrigued how they were redone. Like I think Back to the Future could be redone in a way that could be interesting.
Yeah.
If it wasn't all woked out, but
yes,
I think because I think with the technology, I think you could do something really cool with it.
Oh yeah.
And if you had the right actor, like Michael J. Fox was excellent in it. Was he so good that it couldn't be redone? No, I think it'd be hilarious to see another Biff character. Like, I think I think there's parts of it that would be awesome.
Of Biffs in today's world.
There's so many Biffs, and I think you could have a lot of fun with that if you were willing to have fun with it. So to say you couldn't remake something, I don't think is entirely accurate. There's some I'm intrigued by, but that list is short, and I think Hollywood doesn't want to take chances right now because it knows. I think there's two factions in every studio right now. There's the faction that wants to play it safe and wants to go the woke route and wants to have an agenda and wants to appease, and then there's the faction that's like, let's just go out there and sling it, and let's make a fucking movie.
I mean, one of the things like let's. I mean, like there's. I agree with you. First of all, the from what I can gather, it's more about pushing, like trying to appease the woke gods than actually trying to make a kick-ass movie. I mean, and there was like, the 80s and 90s. I try to tell the kids, I'm like, man, you have no idea. Some of those movies rocked. I mean, the 80s action hero is the bomb. I mean, they're really.
There's no better action hero than John McClane.
No, well, I could argue with Martin Riggs. I love Martin Riggs. I'm a toss up between those two, but I'm like, but they hugely successful franchises there. Those things were great, I mean, but today in today's world, it's just like, man, we're lacking that in that sense, I mean, God bless their efforts to try to make some really good movies, and like the pandemic has hurt everybody, the industries, all industries, and Hollywood for sure. Like
I don't think Hollywood. Let me put it this way: I don't think movie theaters survive.
No,
there's no way. To me, there's very few scenarios where movie theaters survive, and I'm going to tell you why. And I know Tom Cruise is trying to keep it alive, right? He's trying to make the new Top Gun, when he finally gets it out, like this movie theater thing, the thing that brings people back to the theaters.
Yeah.
And I have to say, as much as everybody has an opinion of Tom Cruise, I can appreciate the mission he's trying to do, because he said that he's like, I'm trying to make this a movie that makes people want to go back to theaters.
Right. So like that's an actual noble concept. It's like most everything is going straight.
Despite all his weirdness.
Well, yes, but most everybody now is making we haven't seen a good movie come out, like a good action, like a summertime action flick come out during this pandemic. Like the closest thing that I can think of that could be like a blockbuster kind of action movie that would have been so kick-ass to watch in the movie theaters was Wonder Woman 84. Would have loved to have seen that in
too woke.
Yeah, well, there was some woke stuff in there, but it's still.
Snyder Cut would have been badass in a theater with an intermission.
Oh yeah,
with an intermission.
Yeah.
Snyder Cut. There's a couple in there now,
but that's what I'm saying. There wasn't really any.
No. There's not one I can stick to. Snyder Cut would have been nice with an intermission. It's too long. It's definitely something you watch at home. So that's a fringe one. I would say in the last three. I mean, I think back the last really good one that you were like, okay, The Joker. Which is not really an action movie. It's kind of a thriller.
It's a cerebral kind of
movie.
movie.
It's a thriller. Yeah. I would say even before that, the last Batman movie.
Yeah.
The last Batman movie. The last Christian Bale Batman movie.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
for sure that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there hasn't been anything really good. Like, my
Top Gun could be that movie.
It very well could. I mean, all the trailers that we've seen, just
even though no guy's going to be in the Navy for 40 years, like you, so that's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I love the idea, and I was talking about this the other day. I was like, the single greatest recruitment video of all times, Top Gun.
Yep.
The single greatest. Now, there's a lot of other great military movies, but that one right there. That one started it all, if you will. It kind of really pushed the recruitment to a whole new level.
See, for every guy that went to the academy, it was Die. I remember Die Hard. It was just like, I remember like when my mother was, it was like, I'm gonna go to the police academy. It's like, I'll be John McClane. That was the thing. That was the move.
I loved it, man. I tell you, man.
I'm gonna go to the Nakatomi Tower and take out some terrorists.
So like, and my like those are just like. Like, I can recall where I was when I watched it. Like, I watched Lethal Weapon in the movie theaters with my mom. I came home on leave. I was home from, I don't know where I was at, and my mom and I went to go and watch that. And, those movies were Christmas movies before it was cool for us. It was like, that's what we did. We went and saw those movies during the Christmas time.
The problem I had with the Riggs character in Lethal Weapon was it got weirder as it went on. After the second one, it kind of lost its pop for me. It got too Fruity Pebbles. It went from Cocoa Puffs to Fruity Pebbles real quick.
They were stretching on the fourth one for sure. They were really stretching. The third one, The third one could have been better, but you're right. The first and the
Like
second,
Murtaugh surpassed him as time went on.
dude, he did. You were rooting for him more and more just because it was like you can.
I'm
relate
too old
to,
for this shit. You
can
know, he
relate
was
to
great.
that. I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, the tipping point was when he was on the toilet. That was when it started to become more about Murtaugh.
It did. It's like, oh god, I can sympathize with him right there. But oh my god, I do. I miss movies like that you can really get behind, and you know it's hard. I understand. It's not what. And I question. I'm like, who are they going to get this information about what they should be making? You know, like where
That's in a bar room on a napkin.
Right.
You know,
like, where do you go to listen to these subjects that are like, oh, I think we should write a movie. We should do a movie about this. And I'm like, who sold you that idea?
Jeff, it's no different than when instructors come up with these absolutes in training. It's like, I got an idea and we're going to go on the range and I'm going to say, you have to reload this way.
Right. Yeah,
this is the only way.
This is the way.
Yeah, okay. Get in a high-stress situation and let me know if that's the only way. Go study the data, and you'll find that more often than not, it's get the mag in any way you fucking can. Okay.
Yeah. You can critique it later.
Yeah, it's exactly. You can pick anything apart. So I don't think that there's like somebody somewhere that has the recipe that sits in a room chomping on a cigar and says this is the way. This is because you have to. You take a lot of chances when you are different. You step outside the box. But we've seen whether it's things like The Mandalorian, whether it's things like going to streaming, you can take an old concept, rebuff it, and be different and do something that is exciting and new and comes off as exciting and new.
For sure.
And the hope is that, like Top Gun, for example, is that way. Like it's a whole fresh take with some nods to the old. Some movies nod too hard to the old, and it's too much of a step in the time machine. You still want it to be fresh and exciting and leave you like, I'm really glad they fleshed out that character.
Yeah.
Or I'm really glad that they did that. So that's always the hope, but we'll see. I don't know if Hollywood can be saved.
I don't know. Well, like that's a good, that's a, I don't know if that was an actual question more than an observation.
Yeah, I mean, that's my take. I mean, theaters, it's going to be tough to just, now you've gotten people so comfortable with having it streamed right in the home, and you're seeing Amazon movies and certain things be viable now. And
yeah. I mean, I tell you what, I was talking with my younger son, because that was our thing. My younger son and I, we would go see movies in the movie theater. We'd get a big old box of popcorn and soda and just sit there and watch the movies. It was awesome. And we haven't done that this entire time, and I don't know when we're going to start doing that again. I mean, we were talking about it, like what movies are even out that we could go and see, like what's out there. There's not a lot that are really, floating our boats. So my hope is that, because I do think that Hollywood does serve a purpose. It is a great, when they were true to their purpose,
escapism.
Yeah, distraction, like from the just like any of the pro sports. It was a distraction from your life, from maybe some of the troubles that you were experiencing. You can kind of unplug and sit and watch a football game, or go to the movie theaters and check out the newest action flick, or whatever the case might be. And instead, they turn it into a political agenda or political driven kind of like movement.
You mean like LeBron?
Well, I wasn't going to say names, but since you did.
How dumb is that fucking guy?
You know what? Here's the thing. They start to drink their own Kool-Aid.
Well, I put it in perspective. I said to everybody listening, I said, you have to remember, this is a guy. Let's not get revisionist history on LeBron James, everybody out there. LeBron James, to me, has zero street cred, okay? So when LeBron tries to understand the street, and by the street, I mean common, average people.
Right.
And when I say he has no street cred, I'm not talking about like you need to be a gangbanger to have street cred. I'm talking about he doesn't understand what the normal person's going through. First of all, from when he was 15, he was going to a private school. Let's not get it twisted, okay? And at 16, they knew he was going to be a pro.
Yeah.
This guy was given $100 million at 18 years old. You think he has the first fucking clue what goes on in planet Earth on at the bottom level? And the fact that anybody's even listening to him because they buy his sneakers, you're high on the evidence.
For sure. I mean, like...
Shame on you.
That's a problem. Like, that's one of the things that I have an issue with, is how in today's world, celebrities, like, listen, I am not saying you do not have an opinion.
No.
But to use your platform to influence other people's towards your own opinion is where I have issues.
And I hate to steal Jocko's line because he's way too high intensity for me. Extreme accountability.
Yeah.
You know, if you say something, nobody's saying what you did was like, first of all, it was wrong, but nobody's saying it was like unforgivable. Just come back. Hey, guys, listen, I didn't know the facts.
It's so true.
Walk it back.
Here's the thing. Like, that is what is severely lacking in all of our kind of like streams of life right now is that basically, okay, you do something wrong and you're on the left, just give it a couple weeks and everybody will forget about it. Don't do anything to make it worse by saying an apology. Just let it go. And 2 or 3 weeks will go by, and as long as you don't open your mouth again, people forget about it. Because that's the attention span of the average person. You know, it's like 2 or 3 weeks. What's the next drama to unfold that's got my attention?
I mean, but we've reached a point where that platform dictates intelligence. It dictates his reach. It's everything, and he's used it. He waves it. To me, that was an irresponsible wand he waved.
For sure. I mean, like, that's the problem. Like, I feel like so much of that has happened. Like, let's put it in perspective. So many celebrities, politicians, CEOs have said things
right
that they should not have said, and as a result, something bad happened.
And I love the people that chime in that say he should have done this, or the lasso. They should have had a magic lasso, like like Wonder Woman, fly out of his gun. And listen, please, I can't. Just stop.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, if we were to just make a comment about that, folks, I would say this: you will do yourself. You will thank me whenever something bad happens in the world if you don't pay attention to it for at least 3 to 5 days. Just let the facts surface. Don't listen to what everybody else is saying about the incident. Don't pay attention to the talking heads that are out there. Just wait until credible information comes to the surface. Read, if it matters to you, read as much of that credible information as you can and form your own opinion.
And I think the same thing. Listen, it's not just LeBron. There's a lot of pages out there, whether they're law enforcement pages, military pages, whether they're law enforcement guys, mill guys, civilian guys, everybody in between. There's a lot of pages now. A lot of people are getting off on critiquing situations.
Yeah.
And I've had Tony on this show, certain people, Real World Tactics, certain people that have said, guys, you got to stop doing that with these, like, not to say you can't use them as a teaching tool, but right out of the box within hours, people are like, I would have done this, I would have done that.
Here's what is happening. It's a race to be relevant. Everybody that wants a seat at the table, it's like the I don't call them the news anymore. I call it the corporate entertainment group. They need to be the first to put it out. They can't allow another network to beat them to the punch. So whether the facts are straight, whether this is true or not, whether you are irresponsible with the wording that you use, we've got to be the first to be out there because it's a race to be relevant.
It pays to be first, not right.
There you go.
It pays to be first, not right.
So true.
And I think that to everybody with an Instagram page out there that does these critique videos, I'm not saying don't put pertinent information out there if you feel strongly about it, but give it a day. Give it 2. Take a minute, watch the video, put your phone down, give it a second.
Yes.
You're very quick.
Here's my take on a lot of that. What you're doing is, so like any of these, if it's in the tactical world, for instance, I can speak with some authority on that. When you see something that gets published and is all over social media and the news, there is this compelling urge to try to voice your opinion, again, to maintain some relevance. My problem is with all of these critiques is that unless you happen to be in the exact same situation with the exact same information, with the exact same level of skill that both parties had, it's not relevant. It really isn't, because you can't replicate those situations. There are snowflakes. They're one of a kind. You're not going to find another. And you can try to draw parallels. Well, let's kind of zoom out and let's make some large, let's make some large points about big picture type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, fine, but then it's still.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too. But even then, you're throwing such a large net. How relevant is the information?
Like the biggest one in those situations that occurs is like, you know, people will take a police video and they'll say, use it to promote training, go into jiu-jitsu or go into, listen.
That's a different story.
That's a different story. That's
totally true.
That's fine. There's a lot of those out there, and I get it. Like, look, these officers need more training. Use that as a beacon. And I get that, and I totally understand where they're coming from. And I know the large pages that do it, you do too, and that's fine. You know, if you're using that to promote, hey, I have a training company and I'm trying to, you know, get this point across that we need more ground fighting or we need more of this. Okay, you know, I saw one the other day that, rightfully so, it was posted. It was atrocious. It was a shooting in Chicago that they posted. It was two guys on scene, and you know they got the guy and they got him down, but their mechanics for, you know, cuffing the guy and the procedure out thereafter was so bad. Hiccup, sorry, it was so bad, and you know. You feel for the cops, you know, that I know what the person was doing. They were championing getting more training involved.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I understand. That's kind of like our that's the outcome that we want. We want everybody to be as trained and prepared as possible. And if that's your goal, then I've got no real beef with you. But I feel like there's so many of these other guys that are out there that are just making commentary about this because it's all about views, it's all about likes, it's all about this.
First.
Yeah. So I disagree with that. I feel like there's better ways to approach that. Better ways to go about that.
And there's better vehicles to flesh out that conversation
absolutely.
In a quick video and in a little Instagram post. That's why I'm not going to get into it. That's why I hate Instagram. It's a whole nother issue. You know, with you and with the bopping around and the training and traveling, do you ever have desire to set up shop the way, you know, like Clint does Thunder Ranch, or to do something that keeps you a little more grounded, or do you want to keep traveling the frickin' country?
Well, for about 4 years, about almost 5 years, I did have I did a stint as director of training for an indoor range. I still traveled, but much less, and it had pros and cons. First of all, I don't know any different. Since when I left high school, all I've ever done is gone all over the world. So, which is both good and bad. My kids are young adults now, so traveling is a little bit easier. But the problem is, while people will always, like a place like Thunder Ranch or another place like Gunsight, people are always going to go to those locations because there's value in all of that. The problem is that you're limited into how far you can reach. So when I travel, I get to bring my beliefs to people that couldn't necessarily travel, couldn't necessarily take that much time off or expend all those, you know, travel miles and lodging and all that other stuff to come and train. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's about trying to reach as many people as possible. And that means that I've got to travel. Now, I don't see that happening forever. At some point I would like to, and I think what'll happen is that I'll decide to like retire and stay in the industry, but maybe not necessarily in the same capacity that I'm in right now.
Does it surprise you over the years with how long you've been in the business, with how much combatives has come into the training now too?
Not really, because combatives have always been integrated into our programming. And that goes all the way back to the Navy. You know, the combative side of the house was that's one of the reasons, like I said, Tony's been one of my oldest friends in the industry. I was one of the SMEs that when he came to our team area to to kind of
Tony
show,
Blauer, yeah.
to show his programming. That was the kind of like first time I got to know. I really didn't know who he was at the time. It was years later that I actually we reconnected, and our friendship has been great since then. In fact, the old man, I just had to wish him a birthday.
I don't know how long he can keep doing it. I said it to him when he was in here. I said,
I mean, that's the thing, that's a much more physical aspect. But combatives have always been an integrated part of everything that we do. I'm happy to see it gaining some more, because it's like the industry is so fickle. People they'll kind of like stay in a camp, like, oh, I've got to be in the shooting camp, or I got to be in the knife camp, or I got to be in the grappling camp.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And my blade skills aren't enough.
Yeah, and the reality is that you have to have all those skills.
Right.
You have to be well versed.
You're so right.
You just can't be, a one-trick pony. You've got to be able to do it all, because the reality is you're never going to know what type of gunfight you're going to be in.
The gun industry in so many ways is, I tell people this all the time, I'm like, it's so much like a carnival. It's like, we're going to go over here to the Jeff Gonzales booth. We're going to go over here.
Exactly.
Well, I don't want to say Jeff. We're going to go over here to the SEAL booth. We're going to go over here to the Special Forces group. We're going to go over here to the Talking Head group. We're going to go over here to the knife guys. Here's a blade guy.
I used to use the term buffet, but I like your circus.
It's a circus. Because what is SHOT Show at the end of the day? It's a circus. We're going to sell you a space. We're going to and everybody has like their Kool-Aid to drink, and it's like and that's part of the problem is all those groups, we can all exist.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, hey, I mean, take a step back, everybody, in our industry, and realize that there are 10 million new gun owners. All right? There's plenty of business to go around. Produce a solid product. Be ethical with how you approach delivering it, and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Like, I don't look at, like, and this, like, the biggest thing is that so many people are, and rightfully so, very competitive.
And that's the nature of their training. I get that.
It's true. That's the thing. It's like I don't really look at anybody as a competitor. I look at them as a complement to a programming that I have. So if they're good, if they're solid, and they have a good material, good curriculum, they deliver it well, then they're only going to complement what I'm putting out.
It's one of the few, I'm telling you, Jeff, it's one of the few businesses that you have to really be like I had this, like my mother was like this. I grew up in an Italian household. Don't tell your aunt nothing. Like you have to tell everybody like, I got no money. I got like, because if you say like, hey, I'm doing good, things are going good. Everybody walks away like, how can I get what they have?
Yeah.
Like that's the mentality. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, I get it. But I keep coming back to this idea that if you have a good product, you're honest about how you present that material, you're supportive of the industry and your peers and fellow instructors, you can't be in the wrong. Like I have way more good relationships with instructors than I should. Many of them are more than just close friends. They're dear friends. And when we get together, we're not talking shop. We're not talking about what's the latest and greatest this. We're talking about, things that matter to me, like, what's up with the family? How you doing there? What can I help you do anything? Can I do you want to collaborate on something? Some of the best things that I've done is when we've collaborated on something. Tony and I collaborated for years on projects, where we integrated everything together. It was
very rare.
It is, but it needs to be the norm. It needs to be kind of something that I think more guys in this up and coming industry kind of embrace and not look at it as a threat.
Unfortunately, we're in an ecosystem, and the gun industry is an ecosystem, and the defense industry is an ecosystem where and it's some of the younger guys, not the older guys. I found a lot of mentorship in guys like Tony and certain people out there, but there's this underbelly that's like, if they have something, they took it from me. There's that thought process that, what do you mean they sponsor him? What do you mean?
Why don't? So like, you can get all butthurt about that. You can get disappointed. You can throw a hissy fit. But in the end, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you.
Right. How it should be.
Maybe you didn't
extreme
do the
accountability,
right thing.
right?
Yeah, maybe you didn't do the right thing. Maybe you're not the right person. Maybe you're not ready.
The wheel hasn't spun round.
Yeah. So like, and I believe that, if you do good, if you do your best and you put the best effort into whatever it is that you're trying to do, you will reap the benefits at some point, maybe not right away, but this is a long game.
It takes time.
It does. That's the other thing, is everybody wants it to happen overnight.
Listen, I've been a marketing director in this business 4 times, comms director once, CEO. I've had every title. And I tell people all the time, they all say, I want to have what you have, John. I go, well, that's a combination of 20 years after college and, XYZ. And I said, when I came up, a lot of the guys I came up with, they're coming of age now. I'm like, I try to explain it to people. I say, listen, I knew Tony Sentmanat when he was still highly a cop. I knew JJ Ricazzo when he was just coming out of the feds. I knew Dom back when he was just getting Dynamis up and running. I said a lot of the guys that I came up with weren't somebody's yet. They were starting to, in their coming of age, and we're all kind of coming of age together, and we were all kind of working together. Nobody was trying to see anyone fail. Everybody was trying to just, hey, we're just moving along in the business.
So like the thing about waiting for somebody to fail, that's like, I see that a lot in a lot of guys, where you want them to fail because that means you should be successful.
Right.
And you can look at it from that perspective, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, where we're all in this together. We're in it to win it in the biggest way. How does that help me if a respectable trainer fails? How is that helping us? Is that helping us? I mean, honestly, I can't do this forever. I don't want to do this forever.
No.
So like, are we doing the best by not mentoring? Are we not doing the right thing by not mentoring, by not supporting, by not bringing more people into the fold? And like we said, unifying our mission, unifying our collective, and pushing forward for what I believe will be necessary very soon. And the other thing too, it's interesting. The other thing that I've thought about a lot, particularly lately, is for as long as I can recall, there's never been a unified mission within our industry.
No.
Nobody's ever really sat down to say anything. And it boggles me that we just now all of a sudden are deciding, we should probably do that.
I've said this on other shows, and I'll say it to you, Jeff, because I respect you and I like you, and it would kind of show you where we are. There's not been I'm going to say this twice for everybody listening in the back and everybody who thinks they're somebody's. There has not been another podcast in the firearms industry that has had somebody of the caliber of a Dana White on.
Yeah.
There has not been another I'm sorry out there to everybody that has a show. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jack. Sorry. There is not. And there probably won't be for the most part, because getting him, I have not got a single phone call from the NRA or the NSSF to use a single clip, to use a single snippet.
Wow.
To ask a single question about that. And that's probably the 5th or 4th most powerful person in sports, probably top 10 in the country in terms of influence. Fuck. And he sat right where you're sitting.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about where this business is?
It tells me that, again, we're not
using all our resources.
We're not focused. Or we're focused, but for our own needs.
To get the NRA to call me, you'd have to gun someone down on the street.
I hope not.
That's where that is.
Well, I hope not.
Listen, it's 3. I got to get you out of here. You got a plane.
I know. Is it already 3 o'clock?
Yeah. So I got to get you out of here. Let everybody know where they can find you, how they can reach you, and what they can do.
For sure. First of all, you can hit up our website, tridentconcepts.com. It's got all our social media.
I'll get the link down below, too.
Thank you. All of our social media is out there. You can find me, in all the normal places. One of the other things, too, I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I'm really excited about this project, is a project called 12 Labors. So 12 Labors is a project that a good friend of mine, Craig Douglas, and I put together. It's a conference about promoting male masculinity. So that's going to be this December. First weekend in December.
Badass.
Folks can check it out, labors.com. They can get a bunch of information about that. But I think that's going to be super important, particularly as we move forward. So, that's it. You can find me, find our training schedule on our website, and hopefully see some folks that come into the classes.
And I'll get the links from Jeff, and I'll put them down below. And listen, any date, you'll be at NRA, I assume. Any upcoming appearances anywhere you'll be?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I am trying to make some rounds. I'd like to do more podcasts for sure, because I think that's important. We need to actually, like you said, we need to start getting our shit together. So I feel like if I can get that message out a little bit more often, maybe something will happen.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to be my purpose should be, I'm trying to get together more round tables. I'd love to get like guys like you in a room with a couple other guys, and that's something I'm really working on. So there's a lot of stuff.
Anytime.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the works, like meetups, things like that. I'm trying to get some groups, and I'm saying it on air so everybody understands. The mission of this show is to get people together and get them to start talking. I felt like there was a hole. There was a lot of cool gun, not knocking any other gun shows out there. There's a lot of cool gun shows out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not a gun show.
Yeah.
But they were kind of like these wacky review tabletop type shows where it was like, Jeff, what did you carry? How was Buds? There was a lot of those types of shows, and I'm not that show.
Yeah.
So, well, how was Buds? It was hard. Like I had Ray Cashcare on. He had the best answer. He goes, it's hard.
Fucking Ray. I love Ray, man.
It's hard. He's coming in. He's here. Hi, Ray. He's out here in a few weeks. So,
fucking
but like, yeah, there's a lot of that out there. And look, this show isn't that. And I want everybody to know, and I want Jeff to, like, we're trying to put people together to start to open the dialogue and have some good conversations.
So true, so important. I'm glad, and I'm like I said, anything I could do to support that, promote that, or even
put one together.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, put one together. We'll put everybody up at the Trump. We'll have a good time.
Oh, sounds awesome.
We'll do that. I got the rooms if you put it together. So listen, I can't thank everybody. I got to get him out of here. I got to thank the sponsors. I got to thank everybody. Special shout out to Jeff. I mean, really, it means a lot, him giving me his time. He flew in for this, and I want to thank all the sponsors: Gallo Tech, Rhino Metals, Bull Quartz and Firearms, Right On Optics, CA Gear Up USA. There's a whole list of them. Pulsar. Appreciate all you guys. It's not possible without you guys. Guys, to everybody who's coming to the live stream, there's a lot of you. I try to answer a couple of you guys. I can't thank everybody enough for the super chats, for all the support. The super chats are super important, guys. If you like the show, you support the show, send those in, those questions in. We'll get to them. Appreciate all you guys out there, and we're out.